Coach. Hey, thanks for joining me today again for the second time. For hopefully this 2022 preview. I'm sure you have a lot of experience now under your belt over the last 2 weeks, and I think you scrimmaged, was it yesterday or whatever? And I'm just going to say, and I'm going to open the door to this, your opportunity. Your lighting and how you look right now. I mean, you look professional. You look like a professional YouTuber like me.
When we did our first one, Paul. But first of all, thanks for having me on again. And I didn't even realize how bad the lighting was in my office until I got a package to my house that included a podcast light that attaches to your laptop, and so I'm currently using that, and you can see, look at that, right, like a little better lighting there, Paul. And so thanks to my dad, who's I think now 73 years old, who's hipper than I am. So
stellar dude.
Definitely supporting me on many levels, including my podcasting. So thanks, Dad.
Yeah. I think we both could use the help of makeup artists next, but it's like I think they cost a lot more than your light. So
I'm just trying to go less HD. So.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Love your dad already. Hey, let me just ask. It's I think we're you kicking off here in a couple days. Like, how your preseason go? Any initial thoughts about it? That's a great place to start.
Yeah, lots of thoughts about it. To be honest, Paul, I think trying to think how long. It seems like it's a longer time than it is. International guys just got in. I feel like, again, it seemed like not that long ago. So, I think we've learned a ton about the team. We have quite a few returning players. Added 11 first years is what we've added, plus a transfer. And so, obviously, trying to integrate that new group into our returning group, I think is probably the biggest goal, right, is just kind of get us going and get us going on the same page, trying to kind of build up those partnerships and connections as a group. And we've done a ton of kind of team activities to really kind of support that idea. And being team-oriented is probably at the focus for what we're trying to do in terms of the way we try and play, defend, and attack as a team. Just trying to kind of address so many different things in a short time period. And we're obviously September 1, we open up away from home, and we're actually away, I think, for our opening 4 games. And so That's a little bit of a tough challenge on the group. But for me, I think part of the goal is growing all the time and challenging the team that we have, and see if we can kind of build, on that. Away games are hard, and so new surface, different surfaces, different, game day atmosphere, et cetera, et cetera. So
distance, right? Yeah. Like how you're sitting in a bus for however long it takes you to get to some of these places, right? Hey, let me just ask. Let me go back, and because I'm always curious. Like, what did your first day of preseason look like from a training perspective? I mean, was it fitness heavy? Was it playing heavy? Was it loose?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny in that I've done this for 15 years here at Luther, and probably most of our alums would probably laugh and say, "Hey, here's the kind of scripted look at what it is going to be." We've done some pretty hard fitness testing in the past. Sometimes we've played 11v11 straight off the bat. And so this year our approach was different in a lot of ways. We probably did, instead of incorporating some big testing, we've kind of incorporated just some fitness throughout the time period. Really every session there's a allotted time to grow fitness wise. And so maybe a little bit of a different approach, but maybe not crazy, in that way. We got straight off the bat, right? I would say our coaching staff, we hit some topics that were really important, right off the bat, which again was a little bit different. And then we we kind of got some playing out of the way, because they want to play so
Yeah,
bad. They're just itching
yeah.
for it. And so we want to kind of encourage their excitement for playing. And so we did that and give us some good visual on some of the new guys without a lot of coaching to kind of see what their instincts are. It could be a pretty big transition for those younger guys. We got quite a few guys coming from abroad. And so that's an even more interesting transition for them sometimes in terms of the speed of play and the physicality and just how intense everything is on day one. And then we didn't actually do a double session in terms of training, and we actually did kind of a really big long team activity that afternoon, which is very different than what we've done in the past, and just kind of made a big focus for our group to be good teammates and care for each other and create a team environment that hopefully can help us down the line.
Can I ask why the? I mean, what's your thinking around why you're so? Because it's not the first time you talked about team, right? And sort of bringing everybody together. It's like, was there anything in particular that led you to that, or you just think it's going to be really important?
Yeah,
this year?
I think there's some historical data there just with our group of just wanting to put the team first. We have lots of countries represented in our team, and so for me, the more we can kind of, not to say that it's easy for other players that are all from the same state and kind of style of play, et cetera. But for us, it's trying to, again, blending a player from, Iowa and a kid from Sweden and a kid from Rio de Janeiro. There's just so much historical, cultural kind of ideas that they bring with them. And so, that nature of the team being first is, again, and those, I'm sure lots of teams with lots of similar states are doing lots of similar activity, but we're gonna, we made an emphasis on that, and it's going to be something that we continue to emphasize. And because for me, it's not the quality that lacks within our team; it's going to be how can we put that together, into a team unit in terms of our success rate.
So, did you? I mean, I'm sure you played some scrimmages. How did they go? Were you looking to do anything in particular for those scrimmages, or? Again, same thing. Like, can we get out there and just play?
We played two, and actually, the weather didn't cooperate with us for one. We ended up having like a 2.5 lightning hour delay with one of them, and so we ended up not being able to complete it. But I mean, I think you learn a lot when you play opposition, and so just kind of again the inner squad and the competitiveness in the group is always really great. But like when you get out on the field, what the players can do in terms of performing against somebody else that doesn't do something that our current team does. And so I think you just learn a lot. So our two scrimmages, I think we're planned to challenge the group a little bit. And so we played an AI opposition and D3 opposition, and it gives you film to kind of analyze a little bit. And so for me, like, even this afternoon, we'll look at our film from Saturday and hear the clips. And then we'll do the same thing on, tomorrow, hear the clips. And I think our kids are learning a lot in that aspect in terms of just the visual ideas of what's happening in the game. And can we not overwhelm them, but also just kind of teach, that's our responsibility as coaches. Yeah. So for me, the games are, I probably won't go into the details, all of them, but just, they give your guys an opportunity to train and prepare hopefully for Thursday. So
right, like to me, the scrimmages are directional, right? Like directionally, are we going in where we want to go, or are we doing something completely different? That to me is the real value of those. Hey, your first game, you open up against Cornell College in a few days, right? Like, I mean, that's you travel. I don't know how far that is, but what? With that in mind, like, do you have any expectations for this season? That what? At least a bar where you think the team should achieve. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, Cornell kind of opens up the campaign, and so our approach is to win every game, and so that's kind of setting the bar pretty high in my opinion, right? Because it's soccer, so many so many things can happen. Throw in the new overtime rule, which kind of now it's 90 minutes versus 120 minute or 110 minutes to win a game. I think that, kind of changes maybe some of the intensity of that 90 minutes, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, I think our goal is to be, competing for a conference title, competing to be in the national tournament. And, I'm a firm believer if you can make it into the national tournament, right, you give yourself a chance, right? You give yourself a chance. A lot of things, again, have to kind of go your way. And for the teams who've kind of been able to do it over and over and get to those late, rounds of Elite Eight, Final Fours, national championships, for me, that's phenomenal that they've been able to have that consistency. And for me, we're trying to be that, and, maybe been a little bit outside of that window here the last couple of years. But, our ambition is super high. Our players are super motivated. We've got some key fifth years back that, want to make sure that they, round out their careers on a high. So, ambition's super high. And for me, trying to be the best version of ourselves is kind of a mantra that we have. And the guys are supremely talented. And so if they can be the best version of themselves, to see them display that on the field is what brings me, joy and happiness, and it'll be the same for them.
You mentioned that you have 11 first years that are coming in that you're trying to get in. Like, do you think some of these guys will be contributors right off the bat? Your thoughts on that class, the class you've recruited?
Yeah, for me, it's a strong class, and I would say the depth of the group is probably the strongest we've had, Paul, from top to bottom. Even on our previous, I think podcast, we talked about the size of our roster. We're not as big. We're still big, but we're not as big as we were. And some of that was thoughtful in terms of taking care of the group that we've got. And so that was part of it, right? Just being thoughtful of developing players, but also challenging our top players. And so, yeah, I mean, I think in our first couple scrimmages, we had a handful of some of the younger players, a transfer kind of involved in that. I always call the first team more than just the 11 guys, because you're just typically playing more players. And especially with our opening weekend, it's Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, so there's no way we're going to be able to do that. And I think, the challenge of that is exactly kind of what, I'm, watching your body language there, and just kind of but it's also an opportunity for us to grow as a group, in that opening week. Again, for sure, like physically and mentally, it could be too much, and that's a possibility. But also, like, can we lean on the group, right? Yeah. Can we lean on, guys coming off the bench who are really important players who may not be starters now, but could be, come a month from now. And so it's a chance for us to build our depth in our team. And that's how we're approaching, the weekend, right? It's game by game, but also, can we build the group? After 3 games on Sunday, are we a stronger team than we were, going into the weekend? So, but the first year group is good, super strong, I would say. Excited about what they can bring.
I actually, looking at your schedule, it's funny that you said that the Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, or whatever that combo is. I looked at it and I thought there was a typo, because I'm like, there's no way. There's no way you're doing 3 and 4, right? Which is... Yeah, I think just by definition of that, that should have answered my own question, right? Like, you're gonna have to go deep in the roster.
And again, we gotta be able to do that, and I have to trust. Part of it is building trust, and one of the things we learned from our, I don't want to go too much back into 2021, but one of the things we learned about 2021 was trusting some of our guys off the bench to really help us, and we did towards the end of last year, and it really helped, right? Yeah. Our team was better as a whole, right? They started to play really well. It took some pressure off some of the guys who were consistently playing, and under the pressure maybe of, the result maybe not going our ways was all on them versus, of, right? And for me, it was like a trust. It was totally a trust issue, and I have to trust our players, right? Yeah. And if I can build that trust, and they can start to trust each other too. For me, trust is one of our core values, and their ability to say, okay, maybe I am one of our top players, but I'm going to sub because coach said that, and this kid's going to come on and really give us a lift and energy. And again, maybe the difference is a little bit to the details, but does it grow our team as a group? And so I've got to be willing to say, hey, I got to go into our bench to grow this. And again, our bench is amazing, so it's not right? We try and really, again, get out of this whole starter idea, which is a challenge for our group, especially our international group. And so,
I'm sure those
we're
guys
talking
like
about impact
what?
players.
Yeah.
Like, can you be an impact player
Yeah.
in our team? And sometimes that is our, again, does it go into that second group? If you're in our top 22, top 25 guys, you're so close to playing all the time. So.
Yeah. I'm sure the overseas players, that to them is a really hard concept, right? Like,
For sure.
if you're not in the
Almost
starting
no idea.
11,
Almost
you're
no idea.
not,
Yep.
right?
Yep. It is. Yeah, it is. We work through that,
Yeah. Speaking of, can you just talk about your upperclassmen? Who are you I don't want to say expecting, but who are you looking to really step up? You mentioned the fifth-year seniors. I'm sure some of those guys are going to be critical to your success.
Yeah, we've got a good senior core, right, including guys going into their fourth and fifth year. We've got a lot of goals back. Our front three in particular, Faison, Marcos, and Will Overberg have scored quite a handful of goals over the last couple of years, and so we'll obviously. Again, expectations is important. And for me, they can score on anyone in the country. And so that's going to be, I think give us confidence, but also finding good form. And that's important. Leaning on some of the guys who've come back. But we also have just a core of guys, who are off. One of our guys who, unfortunately, Peyton Shockey is his name. He's not going to be a name that's on our stat sheet, Paul, but he's probably one of our biggest team leaders.
Right.
He's had a season-ending injury 10 days, about a month before he's arrived. But his just kind of impact in the group is amazing. His mentorship of the guys, and for me, that's some of the beauty of college soccer as well that people don't probably talk a lot about. It's what our young men experience a lot with their friends and guys that they play with. Sometimes those supportive guys who end up making sometimes maybe a bigger impact in their lives than the guys who score the goals. And so for me, he's a big impact guy. But we have a big senior group, and so we're really leaning on that group to lead the group. LJ's a fifth-year senior, Daniel Barrett, Felipe, Gavin. There's a number of guys that are there to make a big difference for us.
I'm sorry, were you talking about Marcos Villas coming back?
Correct.
Yeah, I thought he graduated. Yeah.
He had his COVID.
Yeah. No, that I totally get it, but I noticed him. I mean, 13 goals, 6 assists. I mean, that's pretty. That puts you up, right? Like that puts you up at a level that not a lot of teams have, and so that's why I know of him. I just thought he was graduating because he was a senior. Well,
I think most people thought he was graduating.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Cat's out of the bag now. So I got to ask: is he a Real Madrid fan?
You know what? You would have expected him to be, but he's actually a Barcelona fan, which has shocked me.
Yes.
I know.
I'm liking him more.
I don't understand. His parents were in for graduation this past year, and they shared their disappointment. And their son. So,
that's awesome.
But he is a Barcelona fan.
That's awesome. I tell him I'm totally bought in now. Le seguiré hasta el final. I'll follow him to the end.
I love it.
Hey, could you just? I think you talked a little bit about it, and the only reason I'm bringing it up at the American Rivers Conference, it came out with the preseason ranking, which is nothing, but it has you third. But I do know that you play in your conference. You have two really solid. I mean, I think it sounds like this is sort of you want to replace one of those guys to be them, right? Like Loris and Duquesne, who are, make the tournament. And Loris did pretty well. So maybe you could just touch on that and sort of, some of the challenges of the conference.
Yeah, it's a good league, Paul. I think again, Dubuque and Loris were the ones that were, kind of picked, above us, and and for me, rightly so. Dubuque's been probably one of the most stable groups here over the last 3 years through COVID, and like the spring they were really good, and then last fall I thought they were quite good, and then Norse obviously putting together an amazing run, and obviously getting to the national tournament and winning a game right at the national tournament. So I think it shows the depth of the league a little bit. But some of the teams maybe that aren't there, Wartburg's been there in the past. Simpson has a number of Division I transfers and have done extremely well, and then Central winning the league in 2019, right? So like if you kind of look at that group, and then Nebraska was and Co and Buena Vista in particular, right, have continued to grow with kind of some new coaches in the group. They're kind of the newer coaches of the group, and so it's a good league, Paul. I mean, I think there's a lot of teams that probably could win it. So, and obviously we obviously feel confident in that, but I would assume other teams feel confident as well. So I think the depth of the league has been good, and Paul, like the history of the league has typically been 2 teams from the league have gotten through. So,
which I know is a big issue for a lot of leagues, right? Like, how do you get that second bid is what I think a lot of leagues look for. Yep. Hey, can I ask, again, because you're out west, and nobody out west seems to want to talk to me. I'm jokingly, right? But
I'll talk to you.
Do you? Yeah. That's because of the gear, man, and the colors. I know. I got you. Geographically, how far? Like, how dispersed are the schools that you travel to?
Yeah, I mean, ours is, I think, again, North probably has different limitations than the West, right? So if you think about, us, Paul, like Minneapolis is 2.5 north of us, right? So not super far.
Yeah.
I mean, we can normally go about 4 to 5 and catch really anyone almost in our region, north and central too, because Chicago's about 5 hours from us, right? So it gives us access to North Park, U Chicago, Wheaton, etc. Right, lots of Dominican, a lot of those teams. St. Louis is about 6, so you've played Wash U in the past, so we have probably access within a bus ride to be at a lot of teams. So for me, the North. Again, we're maybe not as well known, on the East Coast. But again, we have access to those teams. U of Chicago's returning their trip to play us. So again, we've got some access to some teams with some home and away kind of events. And sometimes we just have to do that. Like we just have to be willing to go home and away with people. And maybe it's a tougher trip this year, but then they come back. I mean, there's obviously you got to do some give and take. It can't be the perfect schedule, and my philosophy is just challenge the boys if you can challenge them.
Well, that's
games you get.
That's funny that you said that, because my when we talked the first time, we talked a little bit about sort of the challenges of being out in the West, and how come, I don't want to say that the success level hasn't been as high, and we talked about that, and it really got something in my head about the Western. I would just say Chicago West, right? Like how much of a challenge it is. So that's why I was asking, because it is true. It's not so much the distance; it's the access. Like, who are the teams that you could conceivably play? And so if you do have
I think it's the access, and then at some point, once you get into, again, I think that's kind of what we talked about last time, was just like it's about the details, right? And again, even like I remember hearing, as some of the top players are coming to the MLS to play in the league, they're realizing, like, traveling all around the country, jumping on a plane, that's not what they do. I mean, that's not what they do. The English Premier League, most of the time they're jumping on a
train
charter
or
for 45 minutes, charter for an hour, right?
Yeah.
Like, so now they're jumping on a 3-hour plane to go play LAFC and going back. We're talking about professionals who have every access to every physical, mental, right, hydration tests, et cetera, et cetera. And we're talking about Division III resource, and so you're jumping on a 5 a.m. plane, right? So there's just, for me, there are just geographical challenges to that. So again, for me, I wouldn't say the North has some of those. Just because again, if we're going to fly out to the East Coast, we're going to fly out to the East Coast. And some teams have done that. I wouldn't say it's heavy, but again, it's resources. We're going out to LA, I think, in 24, we're going to play Redlands and
nice.
Claremont. So we're trying to challenge our group as well. I mean, that's a extremely challenging weekend that we'll put in front of our guys. So.
Yeah, but that's good. That's a flight, but that's fantastic that you can play those types of games. And Chicago is going to be a heck of a game. I'll definitely watch that one coming to you. So I think very highly of Chicago and sort of what they can do this year. I think they're that talented. Hey, so I don't want to. I'm sure you're kicking off the week. You got a busy day, so last one for you. I'm just curious, like what, and you sort of alluded to it. I think what you'll answer is like, what do you think your greatest team challenge is? Not so much the opposition and whatnot, but the stuff that like you worry about. It could be confidence or just the right mentality. Could be just incorporating all these different, we'll just say cultures together, soccer cultures together. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's probably a list there, Paul. I think, some of it is just my focus, with the group, right? Just trying to really be thoughtful of, again, some of my focus with the guys. And again, it is our ability to play together, I think is going to be a key point for us. For me, we have the quality, we have the talent. We can score, right? We can do some special things. We have special players. But for me, it's, can we put all that together? For me, that's not going to be that's maybe the same answer that every coach shares with you on these things. But I think, again, for me, it is our big focus, and how well can they play together? How can we create partnerships? How can we create connections? And for me, creating some confidence and belief in the group. I think last year, again, not alluding too much to it, but we kind of got hit down a little bit, with a tough weekend and a couple stretch of results, and we kind of, instead of maybe kind of coming together and growing through that, we maybe didn't, so it took us too long maybe to kind of get that organized for them, and that was part of my piece for them as well. And so I mean, it's where my mind is at, and trying to get our team and to think similarly, and we're excited about this first opening challenge with Cornell, and St. Norbert's was in the national tournament last year, and Lake Forest has been there in the past, and Cornell I think had 15 wins last year, so it's a challenging group that will play to open up the year.
You're not only jumping in, but you're taking it tough to start, right? Like the 4 games away, and I mean that adds, right? That just adds to the challenge, right?
For sure.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I'll be watching, because the games that I watched last year, even in spite of some, I was impressed with at least how you wanted to play and what you were trying to get done, and think you guys represent the North really well, and hopefully your season and everything goes the way you hope it does, and we'll be talking this time, at the end of the season or at some point during the season about your future trip to the NCAAs and sort of what your plan is there. You're right. Like,
I appreciate
it's,
it.
yeah, really going to be cheering you guys on. And now that I know Marcos is a Barcelona fan, man, I might have to get like one of those big head printouts of him and maybe hang it up there.
Yeah, I think he wouldn't mind that. So
yeah, I'm sure. Like, my wife might have something to say about it. Coach, thank you very much for taking the time. I know it was sort of, we've been going back and forth, and I'll just say, more importantly, from me to your dad, thank you. Thank you. Like,
you set me up for success today.
Yeah. The season, I mean, you can only, it's only going to get better at this point. So, but anyhow, thank you. Best of luck to you and your men, and I'll be cheering from New Jersey.
Yeah, thanks for all your work with promoting Division III soccer.
Thank you.